In this video, I am going to demo how to actually trim up a bowl. Just because some of you may have bowls instead of cylinders. So I've done the same thing that I did with the cylinder. I've centered the bowl on the wheel head. And now I'm gonna make decisions on how I want this shape to be, which I have quite a bit of curve, so I want it to curve quite a bit in. So I'm gonna go in about here. That seems like a good point. This isn't a huge bowl, so I don't want a massive foot on this. And then I'm gonna make the second inner mark, just marking that in enough. And I may decide to go ahead. I'm gonna go a little further out than that initial mark. All right, so now I'm gonna go to this tool and I'm gonna actually use this part first, just because this, as you can see, this is a lot more uneven than my cylinder was. So I'm gonna brace a finger on the back of this tool and I'm gonna put my index finger on the front of this, and I'm gonna be using this way with the point down this time. And notice how this is cutting away in ribbons. It's a little bit dry, but some points do cut away in ribbons. That's exactly the point you want to be trimming at. And it's a little awkward because this is quite a bit more uneven. But I'm starting here. I'm going to go to my small tool here in a minute to even that up. So I'm going to go to this flat tool. Now I'm just going to start at the top. And I may have to use less pressure at different points to get this to even up. The good thing about having your marks on there is you have something to follow. All right, and now I'm going to move a little further down and start cutting away some of this. And so with a bowl, typically you have a lot of extra material in the corners. So it's something where expect to trim a lot of material away. Right? So now I've got that part sort of trimmed up. So now I want to make the rest of this match up with the sort of curvature of the bowl itself, because why would you have it look different than the rest of the piece? So I'm going to start a little further down the side of this, and I'm going to slowly turn the tool slowly carving away, and I'm going to make sure I pause every now and then and take a look at the curve. Just to see if that is matching up, and if I'm happy with the shape, and I'm going to do that by looking to the side. And I think I need to cut in a little more to make this a little more of a continuous curve. But you do this by just sort of adjusting your tool back and forth as you run it over the surface. So I'm going to start in this corner because that's where I really want to make the adjustment. And then I'm going to slowly turn my tool further down, adjusting so that the tool is still dragging material off of the surface. So I'm changing the angle of the tool as I go. All right, so now I've got to go back in on this foot ring. And I'm just going to kind of cut into this, so I have a little bit of an arch to this foot. So that I ended up with a rounded surface for the foot rather than necessarily something that's straight-sided. Play with different shapes to the foot of your pieces. There's no like strict right or wrong. It's what looks best for your particular piece. And I just cut away this corner a little bit because, again, I don't want sharp edges. So now I'm going to start, as I did with the cup, in from my marked line. And I'm going to start to cut in. And again, this is a bowl, so I've got quite a bit of excess material. So now I'm really starting to dig in. I'm going to move out towards my design or my designated line. I'm going to clean this up so I can sort of see what's going on. All right, and notice how I've made this a lot thinner of a foot. Now I'm going to go ahead and start to cut away at the center, and I like to spiral towards the center to start. I find I can move a lot of material quickly that way, and then I'm going to start using the flat of the tool, and then I can continue to cut more away. You don't want to cut too deep, too fast, because if you cut too fast, you're going to cut through it. Take your time and be patient with it. I'm going to clean up the edge just because that's very distracting to me. Again, I'm going to measure this. Okay, so I've got clearance now. So now I'm going to look at this and I'm going to go, okay, does this curve in here match up with the outside? And I can tell you right now it does not, because I have way more material here, which tells me I have a lot more material here that I can cut away. I don't have any give to this piece. So I'm going to finish trimming this up and cleaning this up, and then I'm going to go back to the outside again. So I'm going to kind of slow this down, and I'm just going to try to clean this up and make it look kind of nice by just slowly moving across the surface, just removing only as much material as I absolutely need to. And I'm just removing sort of the cutaway bits. I'm going to clean up the edge. And I'm actually going to clean up this edge by running the flat of the tool on it. I don't always do that, but this one has is a little bit uneven just because of how I cut it off of the wheel head. And now I'm going to go back in, and I'm actually going to start with this small tool because I'm going to work in this corner, and then I'll go back to the large tool. I have a tendency to use the small tool as much as I can because I find I have more control with it. I'm going to cut away quite a bit more. I'm going to cut away a little more of this foot. And then I'm going to look again, and am I meeting? Not quite, but I'm getting a lot closer. So I'm going to cut away just a little more. And I'm going to cut a little of this corner off. Pause. And okay, so now it looks like I have a continuous curve on the bottom all throughout. So at this point, now I just have to focus on cleanup and making sure my shape is good, which I have a pretty sharp ledge here. So I'm definitely going to be cleaning that up. So I'm not removing large quantities of materials now. Now I'm just kind of trying to move small amounts to give a little better shape. You only use really large amounts sort of at first, and then you shift to just barely touching the surface just to finish up your shape correctly. All right, so now I'm going to go back to this tool. I'm going to cut in a little bit because I want this to all match up in shape. And this also helps thin out the foot so it's even throughout. And then just clean up that corner again. You can use the curved tool in here to create deliberately sort of arch spaces. I don't tend to like that for my feet, but you are welcome to do that. I'm gonna again trim up the corner a little bit, trim up that corner just a little bit. And now I'm going to take my sponge, I'm going to run it over all of my surfaces to just kind of generally clean them up, make sure I have no sharp points, make sure I'm covering over any of my centering lines. Again, you can leave your trimming marks, but you don't have to. And that is the basics of trimming a bowl. It's very similar to trimming a cup. However, with bowls, there tends to be a lot more material to remove.